Hi everyone, today is May 14th, 2017, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And first of all, we're recording this on the morning of Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
Word to your mothers.
Yep. Yesterday, I know this is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links podcast, but yesterday, Deck Tech and I were involved in a pretty cool Hearthstone tournament run by 1600 Dust, and they set up the second tournament. It's a monthly thing now. I participated in the first one as well, but this one was a pauper tournament, which means you only use the common cards in the set, so that it negates a lot of the more powerful meta cards you saw. I beat my first player, but then I was eliminated. And then I was eliminated right away in the loser's bracket. But Deck Tech had some pretty exciting things going on in that tournament.
That's a little bit of a build-up, but I did end up getting third. I was on a roll. I won my first, I think it was 3 matches, 2-0. And then unfortunately I dropped my last two, 1 and 2. So I put up a valiant fight. And I had one deck in particular that was undefeated, which was pretty cool. I was pretty proud of that one. So I talked about that a little bit on Twitter and stuff. But it was almost there, but I got beaten by the person who ended up getting first and second.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's obvious from the fact that I got third, or if that's just a weird way the brackets work. But the two guys that I lost to were both really good. One of them was actually a host of a different Hearthstone podcast, so that was Cinder Ascent. So GG's all around. It was a fun time. I really enjoyed the tournament, both building the decks for it and actually playing in it. That was good fun.
Yeah, Cinder beat both of us, so we're gonna have to get our revenge back. I don't know if I can, but we'll see. And we don't have a Hearthstone podcast, so this is our way of talking about it, I guess.
Yeah. All
right. Back to Duel Links. What have you been playing this week?
Well, I mean, I've been doing, the duel quizzes as they come out, but as we'll talk about in a sec, those didn't take up too much time. I've been cracking open the new packs, which again we're going to talk about, and other than that, I've kind of just been grinding. I guess I haven't played too much PvP, so nothing too exciting. A little bit of Weevil when I did play it, because I think Weevil's in a pretty good spot with the new set. How about you? What are you up to?
I just did the PvP requirement, which got you the gems, but I made this Chaos Necromancer deck, and at the time I only have one of them. I still have one of them, but it's one of the new cards you pick up from the trader. But I combined it with the Magnet Warriors, and this is a 30-card deck where you run a bunch of Magnet Warriors, a lot of random monsters, to be honest, Torgod of the Underworld and Chaos Necromancer. But then you put the Magical Merchants out and you start discarding your whole deck. And, Valkyrian comes out really easily because Delta, the Magnet Warrior, gets discarded and he can special summon Valkyrian. So, and then when Valkyrian dies, you can use Symbols of Duty to bring him back. This deck, it didn't do too well, honestly, so far, but it's a pretty cool concept that I will build it if I get more Chaos Necromancers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the new trader cards, but I really like that one, and I really like it, especially in combo with the Magical Merchant. That's the deck that I've been weirdly in love with for a couple weeks now. I've been playing around with ideas like that one. So that's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
And you do come up with these interactions where you're just discarding your whole deck and your opponent can't do anything. It's kind of like Gadgets and Auctioneer. You're just doing things and your opponent's just waiting for you. So, all right. And are you level 35 with all your characters yet?
Oh, right. I forgot about that big thing. So I'm really close. I've got all of my characters to 35 except for 2 of them, which are at 34, and they're at 34 and a half. So they're almost there. I'll probably be there before. I'm almost certainly going to be at 35 with all of them before the new character comes out. So I'm getting dangerously close, as they would say. So that actually kind of leads me into the next point. Should I just keep going on these show notes?
Yeah, we're Deck Tech's gonna need gems, so.
Yeah. As probably you guys are aware, once you kind of finish leveling, you've got some stage gems, and I think Konami's aware as well. They've raised the level cap once, and they're doing more events now and giving out gems a little bit more frequently. But the main source of gems in this game is from leveling your legendary duelists still. So the fact that I've nearly finished that means that I'm nearly finished with my gems for now. And that's a bit of a scary thought, especially since we like to crack open a few packs from at least a few from each set so that we can kind of play with the top decks and tell you which cards we like and stuff like that. And so we decided to make a Patreon for the show. It was a little bit of a weird decision for us because neither of us started doing this with the intention or expectation of making any money. We still don't really have much of an expectation to make a ton of money. This isn't like we don't expect to be rolling in the Benjamins or anything like that. But just a little bit, maybe if you guys want to support the show for things like keeping up with the meta, for things like upgrading any equipment. I know in one of our first episodes we posted it on Reddit and someone said they'd just buy me a microphone. So still don't have a microphone. If that guy's listening, he can pitch in. Anyone who's unaware, Patreon is a website through which content creators, sorry about the dogs, can ask, or the fans, I guess, of the content creators can give donations, usually on a regular basis. You set it up to go per creation or per show or per month. And a lot of YouTubers or podcasters or other content creators have it because it's kind of like similar to the Twitch where you can give donations to the people you like so they can continue doing what they do. Except it's built into Twitch and it's not really built into those other systems. So they set up Patreons. So we're joining the ranks. Hopefully you don't consider that too vulgar, and maybe you'll consider giving a little bit to help us keep up. One important thing is that we are very interested in figuring out how you guys would like us to spend that money. Any money that we get would be going back into the show and or going back to the Patreon, to the patrons, or the people who give the donations. And some shows and things have like patron rewards, and we're not quite sure what to do with that yet. So if you guys are looking for any particular things with the show, of course, we always like to hear that, but also with the patron rewards and where you'd like us to spend the money and all of that type of stuff. We'd love to hear from you. So the Patreon account is at patreon.com/duel_assessment. You can check it out there, a little bit more about why we're doing it, what we're doing, and all of that.
Great, yeah. And of course, yeah, we're open to any suggestions about what to do for the show moving forward.
Right on. Now we've got a lot to talk about, so let's talk about the real show.
All right, cool. There was no Reddit tournament this week in lieu of the Games Plus Gamers tournament that they're running. And there were a lot of participants in this one, but it's still going on, and we're going to check out the deck lists in the future about the winners' deck lists for that tournament, so we'll stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it's still the finals and stuff are going on today, so hopefully something exciting happens.
Right. The main event this week, if you can call it an event, were the Duelist Challenges. Basically, the tour guide of the Underworld showed up in the Duel World, and she had 6 duel quizzes for you to complete. and what you got from it was 120 gems, a Ancient Brain and Tainted Wisdom, and they fuse into a Skull Knight. And all these cards aren't that good at all. And the way it was built up and announced, it was announced like it was an actual event, but in reality they were just 6 duel quizzes. I mean, they had pretty cool cutscenes and whatnot, but people were upset because they said this is the worst tournament ever, which, I mean, people are prone to hyperbole, but it shouldn't have been called an event in the first place, I guess.
Yeah, I feel the same way. They kind of hyped it up a lot. Like, they kept talking about the difficulty of the challenges, and it turns out, like, I'm a type of guy who likes to figure out puzzles, and so I was really excited about these difficult challenges, and I would have been really cool with it had we gotten, like, if it were only gems, and if it were these tough challenges, that'd be kind of cool. Turns out the challenges were really easy. The only one that took me more than one try was number 5, which was also not very difficult. And so it was like, you know, not much of a challenge. Like you said, the cards weren't very impressive. So it's weird because it might have been better if they just didn't give us cards than if they gave us these bad cards. Because if you get these bad cards, you're like, well, what am I going to do with these? But if you never knew that they were going to give you cards, and if you instead just got gems or something, that might have been better. I don't know.
I actually admit that I got stumped for the Victory Viper one, even though I've played Victory Viper so many times. It's just because I didn't know the big core gets destroyed by an effect instead of by battle. So,
yeah,
it took me a while. It took me like 3 tries, but I got it. Yeah.
That's usually the secret to these is, so far all the duel quizzes have been win by this turn, and there's usually only been like the cards that you need to do it in available, like on the field and in your hand and stuff. So usually all it takes is you read all of the cards, and then you're like, oh, okay, there's like 3 moves that I could possibly do. This one won't work. This one won't work. Okay, I guess it's that one. So you forgot to read all the cards. That was the first step.
Yeah, I didn't even do that one for the number 5, and I just got that one. Like, I just knew like what they did, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, there you go.
and you mentioned how Rex Raptor's ready to risk it all, right? Or someone.
Yeah,
ready. Yeah,
that's right.
There are a lot of anime situations where the character was ready to risk it all. Like Kaiba was on the bridge on the castle, and he's like, "I'm gonna fall off the castle." Yeah.
Yes, I remember that one. I was like, if I lose this card game, I'm going to kill myself. And Yugi's like, what have you done, Kaiba? Yeah.
And there's another one where it was actually ready to risk it all. Joey was like trying to block. Mai was like chained or something. Like Yami was going to blow her away with. America was about to blow her away with Wing Dragon and Ron. Joey's like, I'm going to stand in the fireball's path. Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So that's all we have to say about the Duelist Challenges. They're going to end in 1 or 2 days, so finish those pretty quickly, and check out those cool cutscenes.
They're easy, the cutscenes are kind of fun, and you get some gems and some terrible cards, so, go for it.
All right, so then the card trader has some new cards in his inventory, and this seems to be a weekly thing now, but he has 4 new cards. The first one's called Chaos Necromancer, 0/0 Fiend. Its attack goes up by 300 for every monster card in your graveyard. And this is the card that we both saw some potential in and have been testing in different capacities.
Right. So if it's 300 per monster, it seems like you want like 6 monsters for it to be a solid non-tribute monster, which is kind of high for like a normal deck. Maybe a deck that is running like Shine Balls or something can get there consistently, but for the most part, you're not going to get there with most decks. Even with the Fiend Farewell skill, or the other one that Bakura has, the
Tether.
Take the top card. Yeah, the Tether. Those still 6 is a little high. So I think it's kind of a niche card for those combo type decks that we've both been messing with the Magical Merchant and stuff. And so I think probably most people it won't be worth the gems, but I jumped on this super quick. I already got 2. I might end up getting a 3rd. So last week we talked about farming. I've been farming Odeon because I want to get my Gravekeepers, and I've gotten, no joke, like 10 of the stupid Scorpions and 0 Gravekeeper Recruiter, I think is the one he gives.
Yeah.
So I've been converting my Scorpions into Necromancers.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing about Necromancer is he's always going to have 0 defense. And I've lost games, where they flipped him and, 0 defense isn't going to win the next turn. So that's kind of the weak part of that card. Next card's Hammer Shark. 1700 attack, 1500 defense fish. Once per turn, you can reduce the level of the card by 1. And if you do, special summon a level 3 or lower water monster from your hand. Looks decent.
Yeah, this one, it seems like back in the day when Mako decks were huge, this would have been like a very good card in it because it is 1900 attack when you've got when you start with the Yumi out and you haven't it hasn't been destroyed or anything like that. You haven't sacrificed it to the dead list. If you still have it, you've got a beefy beater. Even if you don't have it, it's a decent guy. And there's a few decent targets. I'd noticed Jowls, Crystal Seer, and Yomi Ship are some good ones. Yomi Ship might be the best one because you can just use it as just removal, kind of out of nowhere, which is pretty cool. Jowls is probably the worst of those options because they can kind of play around it if they know. I assume that they get shown which one you're picking, but I guess they wouldn't.
It has to be put in attack mode because it's special summon.
Oh, are special summons only in attack mode? Okay, well then
so.
just Yomi Ship maybe. The other ones don't work so well.
I just thought of that card, the Orca Fortress. That card, it always looked interesting to me because it could just destroy traps or monsters depending on what artillery or ammo you use. But this could actually get 1 tribute out, so you can get that monster out, and then you could play those other cards to destroy their field or their monsters. I don't know if that card's potentially useful now.
If it's just for ramping, though, I think water has a lot of good ramp effects. So I think if it's just for tributes, it's not as good. If it's for tributes and also possibly your Yomi Ship's shenanigans and stuff, then maybe it's a little bit better and worth playing. But, Mako decks haven't really been seen in the meta for a long time, so I don't think it's going to make a huge impact on the meta, either way that it's used.
And it's just important to note that the water set is coming back in a few days, so just look out for that.
That's true. I guess there might be a bit of a comeback when it comes back.
This card's not leaving the trader anytime soon, though, so,
Right, yeah.
If you want to get it. Lucky Iron Axe, 500 attack equip spell. If it's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you draw a card. I mean, all of these equip spells have 500 plus an effect typically, and how would you say this one is compared to the other ones?
Well, I think one point of interest is that it's only a rare, and that, like a lot of the other ones with 500 attack, like the Black Pendant,
SRs.
And the Magical Wand, those are SRs and URs. I think the Black Pendant's a UR. So this is kind of like a budget-friendly version, which is nice. A lot of players don't have their, don't have the full sets and stuff, so they might depend on that. It's also, I like that the effect every once in a while will negate part of the downside of running equip cards. The risk in running equip cards is that you can get 2 for 1 more easily, which is to say, if they destroy your monster, then they also destroy the equip card. So you're out 2 cards and they've used maybe 1, maybe even half of 1 card to destroy it. If their destroy effect is attached to a monster or has another effect or something like that. So it's a huge tempo swing that can be partially mitigated with this card. It looks like the way that it would work, I haven't tested it or anything, is you only get the card if the equip card is destroyed and the monster's like not. If the monster is destroyed and the equip card just kind of falls off, then you don't get the effect. So the main means by which you might normally be 2-for-1 isn't negated. But, every once in a while you can get some of your value back, which is nice.
Yeah, if this was destroyed the other way by destroying the monster, this would probably be a lot better than Gravity Axe. Yeah.
They would serve different purposes. But, yeah, that would be a really good card, I think, if it's just whenever this card is destroyed or leaves the battlefield, or whatever we call it, that'd be even better. But either way, like, it'd be pretty solid if you could just, whenever this leaves, you draw a card.
Yeah.
But
the last card, yep, pretty good card. The last card is Magical Mallet, and it's not an equipped card, even though it's a mallet. Shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your deck, and then draw the same number of cards.
Yeah, this one, it's card selection, of course, because you are discarding cards to draw cards. And so card selection is always pretty good in card games. It's obviously second to card draw in most cases, but card selection is really solid in this game. Specifically, we're seeing the switcheroo nerf is about to go live soon. We've seen not that many of the cards that allow you to switch cards out. And so this is great if you're like looking for a specific card to combo with, or if you are, I don't know, like this would have been great during the Yugi Grandpa's Cards event when you were playing with Exodia, for instance. Right. So, again, it's just a rare. So it's really easy to pick up from the card trader. We have something close to infinite rare gems. They're meaningless, so you might as well buy it, I think. And it could see some play. It would also maybe be a version. You could run your relinquish decks the same way as you currently do with Switcheroo, but you would run this, and I don't know. I could see some uses in normal play, and I could see even more uses in some of the special events that might come. And if we get any sort of combo deck coming up, I can see this being very solid in that. So I'm definitely picking them up when I see them, because rare is essentially free in the card trader, and because I see some potential there in the future.
This looks like a lot better than a card I have called Reload. I don't know if you have Reload. It's an SR. But you throw away all the cards in your hand, and then you shuffle all of them. This one lets you choose.
Right. Yeah. I'd forgotten what Reload was called. But yeah, this is. I think this is a much better version of Reload.
I think the only situation where Reload is better is it's a quick play. So if you're looking for Sphere Karibo to save your life points or something, but it's kind of,
I guess so. Yeah.
There's no other way. There's no other way it's better. It's just a really rare scenario, but. You wouldn't be, ditching your hand. I mean, it's just like a last gamble. You're just like, I really want my Karibo. But this lets you choose, so that's a lot better.
Yeah.
All right. So look out for those cards. There might be more cards next week. We don't know. Next topic is special weekend missions. This is just a note that they have the promotion of having 100 gems for 5 PvP games. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. You just have to play the games. And they go, they're 2 minutes each, or I don't know. But make sure you get your games in. They disabled it last week. I think they had it the week before, and then they didn't have it for a week again. And then they had it again. So I guess they kind of knew the new box was coming up. So I guess it was kind of a way to get people new gems.
Yeah, get people going.
All right, this is big news here. Probably the biggest news. Ultimate Rising and Age of Discovery, the first 2 PAX sets, are coming back. And the reason they're coming back is because Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is officially in esport. It's going to be part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship in 2017 in London from August 11th to August 12th. And, they're just playing the card game, the TCG there, but there's going to be a special division just for our game here. And it's going to be a real life event, so I'm assuming the people would have to go there and bring their phones and play. And the announcements for how it's going to work have yet to be announced, but they are releasing all the cards back so that the Korean players can get cards they didn't get, so they can compete in a I guess a somewhat fair balance in terms of the cards. They would have to hustle to get the cards back. Like, they need to sink in their gems right now to get those old cards, I guess.
Yeah, it did say that it was going to be regional, and I think that means that they're probably going to try at least to keep us to people who have been around for a little while might remember in the KC Cup. It asked us which region we wanted to play in, and it was like North America and Asia and Europe, I think.
Right.
And it turns out that a lot of the Asian countries that were in the game at that point had the game for a couple months longer than like the rest of us. And so there was kind of this whole Reddit backlash thing about how the Asians were invading and taking over the NA, like the one that was supposed to be for the North America, had all these players who had better cards than them. And I never felt that way. I felt like the fact that they let us choose made me think that, there was no invasion because they let you choose. And obviously people are self-interested and they're going to pick the one that they think is best for them. I didn't give it much thought, so I just picked Americas, and I did okay. I forget what the point cutoffs were, but I ended up just playing enough to get to and to ensure that I would get the one ultra rare and one super rare, which I think was like an 8-star or whatever, and it was fine. It wasn't super tough. I didn't love the format of the KC Cup because it seemed to mostly reward time spent playing. Because you can always play, like, obviously at the highest levels, these players are really good and they have really good decks. And so there's a big risk that if you play against them, you will lose points. And I understand that. But for the most part, those players at the top level are at approximately the same level and they have approximately the same collections. So essentially at that point, the way the system worked was if you win, you gain points, and if you lose points, and the person with the most overall like event points got first place. So if you are at approximately the same level as your opponents and approximately same collection, then it's the only thing you can do to gain an edge is play more often. So the guy who ended up, I think it might have been the guy who's now doing the Yugi meta.
Duel Links meta.
Duel Links meta.
Yeah.
I believe he said he like took a day off of work and he spent a couple $100s to build up his collection before. And, that's awesome for him that he can do that. And it's awesome for Konami that this event is really, catching the whales. But for the rest of us, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to take a day off to do this event. So I guess I'm just going to be a middling, 8-star or whatever. And I'm going to get my rewards. And that's really cool. I had a lot of fun with it. And I was really happy with the rewards. But it would have been really cool if there was like pretty much any chance that I could go to London. And I don't think that there's going to be. I'm pretty sure this is just going to be a patched up version of the KC Cup. I think it's going to run pretty much the same way. And I'm going to love it. And it's going to be fun. But there's essentially 0% chance that I'm going to win a chance to London. And that would have like been super awesome had there actually been like a real chance to get there. Yeah, it's also there's one issue with the KC Cup was that there was some concerns about cheating in like the first day or two of the cup. There was some bug where you could build a deck of any size. So people were building like a 5-card deck that had, I forget what it had, but it just ensured that you win on the first turn. And there's like, there was allegedly some cheat where you could download something to your phone. It would just reveal all the cards in your opponent's hand or something like that. I never saw any official announcement on that to confirm it, but there's always these concerns with this digital game maybe not having the best securities or whatever, and people cheating. And if you've got something like this on the line, bigger chance that people are going to be cheating. So hopefully they can protect against that, and they're going to catch anyone who's trying to do that. And to me, one of the biggest draws of going to the big event in person is that there's going to be moderators there, like watching and making sure that there's no cheating. So you can have this really, pristine and like legitimate tournament where you can have just. I would love to see. I don't know how the format works. I've not followed the Yu-Gi-Oh competitive scene for quite some time. So I don't know exactly what they do, but it'd be really cool if they just have an elimination bracket and you're just playing 5 rounds or whatever, and they get to make sure that it's done right. So looking forward to that, all of that.
Yeah, if it'll be broadcasted, that'll be pretty cool to watch too. Just to see how they run the show compared to other games.
Yeah.
All right. So then tomorrow or the day after, the new Duelist Going All Out is coming out. And on Game A new headliner, the new top story, is as rumored to be level 50 Kaiba. And I don't know how they got this leak, but that's a rumor. But this completely contradicts with what Steve, the social media guy for Konami's hint about Yami Merrick, or not Yami Merrick, just Merrick, being the duelist going all out. I don't know what to believe anymore, but I'm still assuming it's Merrick.
Yeah. So, do you think that there's a chance that Merrick would be the legendary duelist that's coming in late May, and that Kaiba would be the mid-May guy, and either your social media guy or you got mixed up?
That's possible, but the signs still say it's the Paradox Brothers, just because of the rhyme, I think, for the second duelist. And actually, in the data mine, if you look in the data mine, there are Merrick cards in there. There's a card called Gilgarth, which is an 1800 attack fiend. There's Lava Golem. A lot of his trademark cards are in the files.
Yeah, I've seen online somewhere the Merrick animation for the Lava Golem too.
Right, they showed that last year with Bakura.
Right. Yeah, so that came out a while ago. That also showed the Exodia animation, and it might have shown the Necrofear one. I don't remember, but they kind of showed us these are the things that are to come. So it makes sense that Merrick would come at some point. And Lava Golem is super OP, so it would make sense if we can't have it also.
Yeah, it could just be an event like Exodia where you get to play with him,
right,
just for that turn or something.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll find out this week. This is the third week of 5 weeks in May, so it should be this week. Yeah,
it's currently the 14th or so, it doesn't get much more mid than this.
I think the 16th is when we expect it in the morning, when we update our games.
Okay, yeah, there you
go. Okay. And the new MINIBOX was released Thursday night here in America, and we're going to talk about it. There was a bit of backlash from the community on Discord. I saw some people saying the squirrel is the only card worth getting. We'll talk about what the squirrel is, but that was the card that stood out to both of us as one of the best cards in the set. And I guess the themes are earth and beasts and plants, and if you're not interested in doing any of that, I guess you could possibly skip this box. But there are some really good cards in this set.
There's one more theme that I'd like to add, and that is the one that kind of interests me the most, and that was the graveyard theme. It's kind of like a sub-theme, I guess, but I liked all the graveyard. There was a little bit of graveyard manipulation and stuff in it, so I was pretty excited about that. Like you said, we're about to get into it in the Duel School section where we're going to talk about the actual cards specifically. But one thing that was interesting about the set was that not just the squirrel, but also some of the other best cards seemed to be rares, which I kind of liked. The set as a whole has some solid ultra rares and super rares that we're going to get to and talk about. But the rares are the cards that I really wanted the most, which was cool because it's kind of more of a budget set in that sense. So I think some of the people who are complaining that they didn't get, I don't know, the most impactful cards. But I do think that there's some value to a set that does not cost very much for people to get, especially as someone who's now just about run out of gems and who totally understand. Like, we had been previously concerned about the pace with which these cards are coming out, and Konami has stated that they like having cards come out quickly because it shakes up the meta, and they've kind of upped the amount of gems that they give out to keep up with that. But still, there's these budget concerns. And so to me, a set that maybe doesn't have as much flash to it, but that has some solid rares, so you only need to buy it through maybe once, and maybe not even that if you just want these good rares, there's some value to that I think is maybe understated value, because it's not as flashy as if they were to have given us like these super amazing ultra rares. Like, I hate it when the ultra rares, the best card is an ultra rare like Ritual, because then you need 3, and you're just like, okay, cool, I'm never gonna play whatever the name of the dark Ritual one is from the set with Mirror Wall and stuff. Like, I'm never going to play that guy because I Gandendorf or something like that. I'm never going to play him. I'm not going to buy that set 3 times through, even though he's got a really cool effect and he's really powerful. So I'm okay with this set. Why don't we get into the cards?
Yeah, I think just as another thing, on the first day it was released, I said, oh, we don't need Econ anymore. I was like, oh, I don't have to go looking for Econ anymore, because I thought that this card was a complete replacement of it, but it's not really. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what D. Kayed of Duel Links Meta, he put out a video talking about the set just before it released, and he noted 3 cards specifically, and then he talked about a Baboon deck. The first card he talked about was Gearfried the Iron Knight, and this is kind of an iconic card in the anime. It's an 1800 attack, 1600 defense monster, and any equip card equipped to it is destroyed. He points out the combo with Smoke Grenade of the Thief. So you would equip the Smoke Grenade on Gearfried, you destroy it, and then you punch out a card from your opponent's hand. Hand card destruction isn't very prevalent in Duel Links. There are a lot of cards that do the thing, like White Magical Hat or Mephiст, but this triggers automatically without doing anything. And he also notes that 1600 defense is a very good block for Sergeant Electro, because it's still played a lot. And if you put him in defense, I guess he withstands Sergeant Electro, and then you can destroy him the next turn. So he points out that card. The Squirrel, Nimbo Musasabi. This is the card that was apparent to both of us of being one of the best cards in the set. And he points out you could combo it with Gyaku Gyre Panda. And, it's a burn card, but Deck Tech will talk more about it later. He also pointed out Security Orb as being the card that will put Harpies away in the beginning. He says that they would be concerned about destroying the back row with the Harpies Hunting Ground, and he does stress that it would only be temporary, that the Harpies would be going away, and once Security Orbs go out, they would run Harpies again. Now he talks about the Baboon deck list, and the Baboon deck list that he theory crafted is 3 yellow baboons, 3 green baboons, 3 obedient schooled, 3 playful possums, 3 unifloras, 3 hanes, and 2 skull lairs. The deck works around obedient schooled, and in which you special summon some beasts, and then you put out the baboons right away. Skull Lair, he noted, was specifically used to counter Relinquished, because he says the Baboon deck list would be pretty good against Harpies, but it would be weak against Relinquished. So Skull Lair is there because of that. He mentions how people who... Hane of note is a card from Ultimate Rising, so he mentions Bubonic Vermin as being the budget beast card in place of Hane if you don't have those. And he also points out other cards which could be used for the deck, like Jar of Avarice, so you could recycle some of your beasts and reuse them for the baboons. Naturia Pineapple, Mogmol, and Mishizuri as other cards you can run for this deck. But all in all, this deck seems like you'll have to buy the set 3 times through just so you can get 3 copies of each of the URs and the SRs for this. But seems like a very powerful deck. What cards have stood out to you so far, or you want to talk about for this set?
Yeah, so I think, of course, D. Kayed's notes were spot on. He's a really good player. I think he ended up getting second in the Kaiba Cup. Like I said before, I think he was the guy who might have taken a day off work to do so. And they put out some great stuff over there at Duel Links Meta. We always check with it when it comes up on Reddit and stuff. So I definitely agree. I had not seen the Gearfried combo. I kind of like that because there's not very much targeted discard, if any, in this game that I could think of. There's a little bit of random discard, but there's not much of that either. The Smoke Grenade has gotten a little bit of play in Last Gamble decks, Joey's skill Last Gamble, because if you whiff on the turn after you've done your last gamble, you will lose because you have to gamble and get your life really low and stuff. I forget exactly how it works, but so it's to clear out the Kuribos. So it's kind of cool that you can do that in another deck that maybe isn't fully combo centric. It's also just a really solid card, like he said. I have it as a solid beater that's immune to things like Mask of the Accursed, which is kind of important because I think the Nimble Musasabi might make Weevil the new top deck, at least for a little bit. And of course, Reddit has had Weevil win the Reddit tournaments several times. Like 50% of the Reddit tournaments were won by Weevil decks. So it's already pretty solid. It sees less play on the ladder, I think, because it's a slower deck. So it may be better for tournaments than for the ladder, where you're going to be playing a lot of games. But it does seem like it's getting a little bit of a boost there. And the little bit of a boost helps, and as does the slight decline in Harpies, which, again, I totally agree with him. I think that the orb is good, but it's not as good as everyone says. It's a little bit overhyped. So I think PvP for the next little bit is going to run a lot of orb, and a lot of people are going to be afraid of the orb. But once they figure out that it's not quite as good as everyone thinks it is, then they're going to go back to running, better cards in its place, and Harpies will come back. So I think the 4 a time is spot on there. I went through each of the super rares and ultra rares. I like the baboons, but I don't like that you have to pretty much build a deck around it, as he did, of course. And I think there aren't at first I thought there were a good amount of beasts. You've got the bubonic bourbon. You've got Hane, I think, is a beast. That was a good one. I don't have him, though. Maybe I'll get him when it comes back up. And Babu, the Soul Eater or something like that from the Card Trader. Those are some solid beasts. So there's a little bit of room that you could do kind of a sub-theme, but I think it might work better as a full deck like he's done. And so if you do a full deck, like you said, that means you have to buy it 3 times through, and I'm not terribly interested in that. So I don't think we're going to be doing that. The Mega Rock is a super rare whose size is based on how many rocks are in your graveyard. Unfortunately, there aren't that many rock types that are any good at all. So I got my eye on that card to maybe get better in the future. And it would, again, be in one of those silly magical merchant type decks. But for now, it's no good. The Gearfried Swordmaster is super powerful, and you can tutor it out of your deck using the Release Restraint. So, and obviously if you just look at the cards, the way it works is you play the Iron Knight and you play Release Restraint and you get the Swordmaster. And the Swordmaster is just nutty value if you get him. So tutor effects plus nutty value is cool. Obviously it's a little bit contingent because you need a combo to tutor him out, and it's a negative card advantage in that you essentially are discarding this. It's like a ritual, I guess, kind of. So it needs to be strong, but it seems pretty strong. So I'm interested in that. Obedient School, again, he talked about that in his deck. It's great for thinning your deck. It's great for ramping up to get your minions. It's great to summon your special summon your baboons. So that's a really solid card. Uniflora is kind of cool for Reanimator deck. That's one of the graveyard effect ones I was talking about. It's also good for Obedient School synergy, so that's kind of cool. Raging Mad Plants is another one of the super rares, and it is just crazy powerful if you can get a decent like plant beatdown deck. And plants are I think good enough that might work. You've got Jerry Beansman, of course. You've got the strawberry, whatever it's called. You've got the Guardian, which is the tree that does the same effect as the strawberry, essentially. And then you've got the Reaver from the Fire set.
Is Lacunga a plant?
Lacunga?
Yeah, it's like a 1700 attack from Chaotic Compliance. Yeah, it's a plant. It's a water plant.
Oh, boom. There you go. You got another plant there. So we've got a good amount of plants with 16, 17, 1750 attack. And some of the 16 ones have pretty solid effects as well. So, it might be enough to get you there because the Raging Mad Plants effect is just like crazy strong. If you got a couple plants in play and a couple plants in your graveyard, that's just overrun potential right there. You can kill someone, just run right through them in one turn. And it's a quick play, so you can also do just silly combat tricks. So that's just a great card that it's a super rare, so I'm probably, again, not going to build it because you'd have to buy through the set a couple times, but I do think that there's some potential there, and you might end up seeing a little bit of plants on the PvP ladder, or maybe some silly guy brings it to a tournament or something and just blows everyone away. Of the rares and neutrals, there's a few that I think are worth noting. Master Monk is it's kind of like a one tribute, but it's really more. You special summon it, so it's not a one tribute in that sense because you could play it the same turn. But you have to special summon it by sacrificing specifically the Monk Fighter, so it's also like not a one tribute in that sense because you can't just tribute anything. So it's very limited in that sense. And so it kind of makes it into just a combo card. But when you get it, it's 1800 attack and it gets to attack twice. Is that
1900.
right? 1900 attack and it gets to attack twice. So, that's just essentially one turn kill potential right there. If you give it any sort of buff or evasion or something like that so it can make sure it attacks directly, that card seems like it's asking to be broken by someone at some point. Flowerbot seems pretty cool in certain decks that, like, if you can send it to the grave when you want and then maybe shuffle away a bad card by using Switcheroo or using the card we were just talking about earlier to get rid of certain things you don't want, that seems really powerful in decks that want specific cards or just for card selection. So I like that. We talked about the Nimble Musasabi. Just to point out, the Panda gets bigger if you haven't faced it. It gets bigger with every card on your opponent's side, so that's just a really solid combo. Also, the Musasabis go on your opponent's side, but you get the effect of the 500 damage to the opponent. This was something that we talked about before in the Duel School, where you had learned how graveyard effects in this game apply to the person who, I guess, owns the card, not who controls it at the time that it dies. And so it's different from some other games. And so this one's the same way that even if you pull out 2 for your opponent, you can then attack through them, or not through, but just if they end up going to defense mode, you can attack into them, and you still deal the 1,000 damage to your opponent. So that's part of the reason, and really the main reason, I guess, why I think that Weevil gets a big boost in this set, because that little combo interaction thing seems really strong for Weevil decks. So I've been trying to play it a little bit, not having as much success as I expected. I don't know if that's because it's not as good as I expected, or if it's because I built it wrong, or I'm not as good as I expected. So I'm going to keep giving that a little bit of a try, and maybe take a look at some of the more successful Weevil lists and see what I think we can do with it.
I also want to bring out my one-turn kill. Wait.
Yeah.
There's a free card you can get from the Duelist, the standard Duelist, called Xian's Spy. And with Xian's Spy, it's a magic card, and you give control of the monster to your opponent. You give them Nimble Musasabi. You play Azura Priest, which is 1700 attack spirit. Can attack all monsters this turn. Attack Nimble Musasabi, summon 2, attack the other ones, you win the game.
Boom. Roasted. Yeah. So that seems fun. I definitely want you to do that also.
I only have one Azura Priest. More
cards worth noting are Amaryllis. I don't know how to say it, but it's a plant, and it's a little guy. I forget the stats because they're not important, but it says you can remove it from your graveyard to count it as a tribute for your tribute summon. So that's awesome. It's a stall card. It's a card that you can discard or whatever, and then you essentially get a free tribute. So I think that might be enough. They've been trying for a little while, I think, to make tributes more of a thing in this game, because they essentially aren't played except for like very specific decks that want to like beat you down with the biggest tributes usually, or like a very specific tribute like the Gravekeepers. And so I think this card is really solid for maybe just making general use of tributes a thing. Plant Food Chain is another really good weapon for those plant aggro decks we were talking about. It is like obscenely good in terms of buffs. And if it were, let's see, it's 500 attack buff, and then when it dies or when the monster dies?
When this card's destroyed by an effect while equipped.
Yeah. When this card's destroyed by an effect while it's equipped, then you can target one plant-type monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. So, that's another card that just gets really good value from negating a little bit of the downside of running equips. Like we just talked about, 500 attack is pretty solid boost anyway, and that's just resummoning one of your plant guys, nutty.
I guess this card is destroyed when it's face down, right? Because they don't know what it is, and then you activate it, and you give them 500 attack, they destroy it because they didn't know what it was, and then you get a special summon, right?
Yeah, I could see that working out pretty well. And there's also, sometimes you can force them into a situation where they're going to need to, they're using the, the getting rid of everything, Storm.
Straight Flush?
Yeah, well, maybe Straight Flush.
Yeah, Storm.
I was thinking of Storm. And so, you've got a couple things set, and they need to get rid of all of them. So, I don't know. I could see it working in a few situations to get the special summon. But it's also one of those, even if you can't force them to destroy it in that sense, they have to choose sometimes between taking an additional 500 or losing their battle. If you're going into combat, because it's a trap, you can do combat tricks with it. And then they have to choose, am I going to let them keep this buff, or am I going to give them another decent body? We just talked about how all the plants have decent bodies. monster. And so I think that's a nice little tough decision to give them. Even if you can't trick them into destroying it, it's still a bad situation for them. The next one worth noting is Security Orb. We talked about that a little bit, how it's solid, and it's the effect is almost as good as enemy controller. The not being able to steal the enemy is a big difference, but it is definitely a solid card. And I think the last card that I want to note is Big March of Animals, which I think would be pretty OP if beasts were like better, or if the new beast synergies were more traditional in the way they worked, in the sense of like just dropping beasts on the board and getting value trades and swinging in to go face. Instead, these new beasts are a little bit kind of tricky, I guess, in the way they work, and you need them to die so that you can special summon and stuff, and so it's less straightforward and it doesn't work as well with them. But like I said, we have Babu, and we've got these free special summons, so it might at some point get to the point where you've got enough good beasts that you can run this strong card and just in kind of a more traditional aggro type deck.
Cool. What do you think about the card Retort?
Sorry, what was that?
The card Retort. I'll just tell you what it does.
Yeah.
It's a counter trap. When your opponent activates a spell or trap with the same name as one in your graveyard, negate the activation if you do destroy it, and then add one card with the same name from your graveyard to your hand. So, I guess in some metas, like in the most competitive stages, everyone is running the same magic card, right? Typically, like, if everyone's running Econ or something, or everyone's running Mirror Wall.
Yeah, I don't like it. It seems like it, obviously it needs to be very specific. You need to get exactly the right situation, and you need to have already like used it. So it's not even a combo where you need to use or have it in your hand, or you can play them at the same time. It's like you need to play it, have yours in the graveyard, and then they can do it. So it's like super swingy of a card. Obviously, if you activate it on a decent card, then you are almost certainly going to win that game. But I don't think that I would risk that, because it's, pretty likely also going to be a dead card. Like you said, there's a lot of predictability. There's a lot of cards that for sure are going to be in most decks. Things like Windstorm and Econ and Mirror Wall tend to be in most decks. Depending on the meta, you can add a few cards or subtract a few from the list, but I don't trust it. And I guess you're right. I think if you are going to a specific like tournament or something like that, where for sure or have a much better idea as to what's going to be there, then it works a lot better. And it might be worth it because the upside is just huge. But I'm seeing a big potential for downside where you just got this dead card, because it only works when you have this very specific, situation all set up. And I'm not sold on that. The downside of a dead card makes up for the upside of winning that value game. On the ladder, especially on the low ladder, where you're facing just a lot of decks are just, good cards and my best beaters, and, I happen to have one or two solid like traps and spells and stuff, and I think on the lower end of the ladder it's a terrible card. On the higher end of the ladder it might be okay because, like you said, it's a lot more of a predictable meta and stuff, but I still don't think it would be good. I think the downside outweighs the up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it could be like an extra deck card if everyone in tournaments are running just one deck. Like You only bring one deck to a tournament, right? You don't bring multiple ones, I think, right?
That's a good point. Well, yeah, most tournaments I think are just one deck and sometimes a sideboard. And the putting this in the sideboard is pretty interesting. I wonder what deck could best abuse that. But maybe if it's a deck that doesn't have like any specific thing that it needs to counter, or
Right, yeah.
like any like really strong strengths or weaknesses, but it's kind of more of a middle type deck. I don't know. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I guess if we don't have anything to talk about, anything else or any other cards to mention, that will be it for today.
Yeah, we ended up getting through it pretty quickly, so good job on that.
Cool. We're going to give a shout out today to D. Kayed, the guy who runs Duel Links Meta. From what I could tell, he just did the whole thing on his own. It's just a one-person show there. So he puts out really good videos, very informative videos, very clear, succinct videos about how to play the game at a really high level. And like we said, he was the guy who got number 2, I think, from the Kaiba Cup. So thanks to him, we'll keep checking out his stuff and bringing it up as it relates to the game.
Yeah, he's got. I think he does run the site on his own. He's actually got a Patreon as well with some supporters and stuff. But he gets some support in terms of like help with the content, in that he has an exclusive high level Duel Links Facebook page that I've seen him mention on Reddit a couple times. Like, if you make a post that's good enough, then he'll ask you to come join or something. I've seen that happen a few times. So neither of us has gotten an invitation, and that makes sense. But I think that's maybe people who help him test stuff out. But I think he does run most of it on his own, and that's really impressive. And it's, like you said, it's some really good work. So that's cool.
Great. So check out this podcast on your feeds, iTunes, Stitcher. Check out our website at theduelassessment.wordpress.com. We have a Patreon now, so it's patreon.com/duelassessment, I believe.
Duel_assessment.
Duel_assessment. You don't want to give it to the other account. Send us an email at theduelassessment@gmail.com. Any thoughts about the new decks or cards? And also, we are very, very active on Twitter with our shared account, Duel_assessment. You can find me at Green Ranger HS, and find Deck Tech at HS Deck Tech.
That's right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening.